Hi everyone, this is Gayle. Or I should say hello patrons, because that's who this message is for. I apologize that I have not gotten you a tutorial lately, and life has just kind of been crazy this summer, but I'm back on a regular schedule, hopefully. I've got a new tutorial that I'm going to start doing right now, but I wanted to talk to you first just to let you know that I had asked you before and didn't get anybody that replied that they didn't approve, but at least 3 months after you get your tutorial, I may offer the tutorial for sale. And you know, I could do it either on Etsy or on YouTube, either one. But I have found that it's kind of difficult to do because I do talk to you as patrons, and then if I'm selling that video, I'm sure people are saying, well, who are these patrons she's talking to? So I'm going to try to refrain from using that term and just talk as if I were teaching a regular tutorial. But know that this is especially for you, and it will be a while before it's ever published. Matter of fact, the one I'm doing now is probably going to be something closer to maybe Valentine's Day or June for weddings, or May, anywhere between February and say May. I'll probably offer this one for sale, but not before then. I want you to enjoy it first. So and to let you know, I will never offer these free because you have paid for these videos, and I mean you're supporting me, and this is my thank you for supporting me. So I don't think it's fair for me to give these videos to people at no cost. So I will never, you know, put these out as free videos. So be sure that, you know, someone else is going to have to pay probably $20 for the videos you're getting for free. So I want to thank you so much for your support. It means so much to me. And, you know, I just don't know any other way to repay you than to do a nice tutorial. So I hope you enjoy this one. And I'll be back soon. Bye-bye. Hi everyone, this is Gayle. I hope you enjoyed this this tutorial that I'm going to be doing. It's something that I found by accident. I was looking up one method or technique that I wanted to use, and I just came across this. Don't know why it popped up when it did, but it's just a fantastic idea. It is a Welsh love spoon, and I've enjoyed reading about these. These have been around, I believe, since about the 17th century, and they started out for actually being all made of wood. And when a young man decided he wanted to court a young lady, he would give her this spoon as to show her his talents as a wood carver, and also to express to her that he cared about her. So it was an expression of affection. And then as the years or the centuries went by, they have become Valentine's Day gifts, wedding gifts, you know, gifts for special occasions. So I just thought I would show you my take on a simple one, because this is going to be new for me too. But I think it's going to be fun, and once you do one, you can look it up and see some of the other styles that are out there, and maybe you can elaborate on the technique that I'm going to be teaching you today. So let's get started. Okay, I'm going to start with some ecru clay, and this is Primo ecru. And I got this from a big block. I buy the 1 pound blocks of white, black, and ecru, so I don't know how much clay this was, but I would say it was 1.5 to 2 ounce packages, maybe. But it doesn't really matter. But to start off, I'm going to, let me do this side since it's got the little tongue on it. I'm going to start by cutting out a heart. I have two hearts here, and they look pretty much the same. So I think I will use this one because I like where the seam is better. But I'm going to cut out a heart out of a double thickness. This is rolled to the thickness setting of your pasta machine, and I'm cutting this out. You can see how thick it is, and I cut out the heart, and I'm going to set that aside, and everything else, although I may cut a couple of other hearts. Let me do some smaller ones, and these will be, I probably ought to do these a double thickness also. There was something on my cutter. Should have checked that before I did it. And I don't have another place for another one, so let me just fold another piece over. It's not really going to matter about this because the rest is going to be rolled into a long snake. So it doesn't matter. So now I've got one big heart and two little hearts. And I say little, smaller hearts. They're not little. And these are just some graduated cutters. I believe they are from the fondant section at Michael's. But you can find heart cutters just about everywhere. And now, after I make sure there's no air trapped in here, I am going to just cut some strips and roll them into snakes. Now I could use an extruder, and I do have one I could use, but I have to assume that not everybody has an extruder, although they're awesome. But I'm just going to roll a series of snakes that are all about the same thickness, hopefully. That's where the extruder comes in handy. And right now you don't have to worry about the length. We're more interested in the diameter. And just try not to get too many little... My problem is I'm a little heavy-handed. So I push a little harder with my fingers than I should, and that leaves little finger marks. But one way to prevent that, if you happen to have a long piece of acrylic, you can use this to roll it, and it will give it a more uniform width. See how much better that is than when I did it by hand? I think I will keep that one, and I will do this one again. I'm going to have to fold it up so I can get rid of the seams. And you can even use this from here. You can just roll with this until it gets out long enough. It just takes a minute. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now I'm just going to start with two right now. I'm going to take my large heart, and this is not what it, this is actually going to be the spoon part, but I'm going to do that later. And let me get a piece of patty paper to put this on so it will be easier for me to pick up. I guess I'll do it this way so I have a little bit more space to work. And what I'm going to do with these two ropes, so I'm going to cut a smooth edge on one end. Actually, that one looks a little bit there. That's better. And I'm going to attach them here on either side of the heart. Try to get it close to the same place since we are trying to impress someone. Let me try to come in a little bit so you can see more what I'm doing. I don't want to get so close that I go out of frame. But we've got these two, and you might want to use a little tool. I've got several tools. I have metal tools. I have these little rubber tools. But whatever you've got that you like to use, take that and try to smooth this. This isn't going to be the final smoothing, but you want to smooth it at least to where you know it's going to be stuck to this heart, because we don't want it to come loose. See, another thing I like about it being on paper is I can move it around. Now I'm using ecru so that I can maybe stain it with a brown stain and it will look more like wood, since the original ones were wood. But even since then, modern people have started making them out of metal. They make them into key rings and into all kinds of little dangles, necklaces, whatever. But I'm going to make this a moderate size. Some people hang them on the wall. So I'm taking that and I'm going to crisscross them. Let me pull this one over this way. Now I'll take this one over this way. And it's up to you to decide the space that you want. I think I want mine like that, and I'm going to flatten it just a little. But we want to keep this seam because it's supposed to look like wood that's carved. Alright, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this over here and this back over here and do the same thing. And then I'm going to just come up and this is where I'm going to cut. Okay, I have pressed this heart at the bottom and made my little spoon. And now I'm going to attach these hearts. And it looks like, I'm thinking instead of the hearts being separate, I want them to kind of be together. So I'm going to get a little circle cutter. I don't know that that's going to be small enough. You get my other cutters. I think this is better. No, maybe not. I'm I'm going to cut, let's see, I'm going to cut a little scoop right there. And then put these hearts together, and then put this on the outside of that heart and bend this one to the outside of that heart. We may need to straighten them up a little bit, and we can do that. Just get a little tool and just straighten them up. And while you're at it, you can blend this. Make sure that these are stuck together. You don't necessarily want to blend the seam, but at least make sure that they're stuck together. So I've pressed these down to where they were flat. I've got the spoon done here. I've got the hearts. So let me do one more rope. Or actually, I'll do 2 ropes, but I'll do them together. If I have enough room. Get out my acrylic blocks to roll those. And this part here is pretty thin, so I'm going to just cut it there. And I think this will be enough for what I want to do. Let me just get it even. And then I'm going to just press it to flatten a little bit. Let me look at my hearts and make sure they're the way that I want them. Because now is the time to do your refining. It might be a good idea to unstick them from the patty paper. Okay, so then I'm going to have this piece coming out. Let's see, I don't want to mess up there, so let me angle this cut a little bit. And I'll have it come out here. And it's going to come in this direction, so that looks good. We do want a seam here, so we can still define our heart. And I'll do the same thing with the other one, only I will cut the angle at the opposite direction. And attach it here. Just want a little bit of space between here. It doesn't have to be much. Okay, I've crisscrossed these and pressed them together. And I think I want to make this hole a little bit bigger, so I will just use a tool to make that a little excuse me, a little bit bigger and wider. And then I'm going to make a loop. It's going to come up this way. And then with this one, I'm going to make a loop. See, does this, I think this goes over. Actually, I think it goes under this. Let me do this. I'm trying to remember my Celtic knots. I think that goes under, and that goes over, and then we put them together at the top, and I'm going to create some flat edges so I can put these together. I'm just trying to get my loops about the same size. Doesn't matter if the top one's a little bit bigger, but I do want to create a point. Let me use my other tool. I want to create a point instead of leaving it round and make it sort of like an infinity knot. And I will put my smaller ball tool in here so that I don't close up the hole. Make a little point there. There we go. And you see I'm making all kinds of little grooves in here, and that's really not going to matter. But I'll just kind of go over them a little bit, because the next step is to add some wood grain. So let me just get everything shaped the way it needs to be. I think this needs to come down a little bit, just to make everything look like it's the way it's supposed to be. And like I said, every once in a while unstick from this patty paper, because otherwise when you start pressing it, which is what we're going to do next, it's going to really stick. I really need to move this over a little bit. Or even better yet, I'm going to add another patty paper under it. Then I don't have to worry. I had it going catty-cornered because I didn't know if it was going to be wide enough. This side. There. So now I got all this paper I can work with. So I don't have to worry about trying to stay on the paper. But let me just put these where I want them. You know, you'd think, I've only got 2 tools on my desk, and I always pick up the wrong one. Okay, so I have this wood grain stamp. It just says Finnabar clear stamp, 1 piece, and there's evidently some others that are texture, but I just happen to have the wood grain. And I'm going to pull them off of the plastic. And there's a fine wood grain and a thick wood grain, and I think I'm going to stick with the fine. But the first thing I want to try to do is to get inside this spoon But I need to come straight up because that's going to be the direction the wood's going to go. It doesn't really matter if I don't get all of it, but I would like most of it to have the wood grain on it. If I do it this way, maybe it will, yeah. And then very lightly put wood grain on the rim of your spoon. And you can press it from the sides to put it back into shape. Just don't press very hard, press very lightly. And just do this section by section so that you have control over what you're doing. And all that showed me is that this is a little crooked. Let me move this there. I think that's better. And did I? Yes, I did. I separated my knot. That's the only thing about this sticky clay. This is Primo, and usually Primo is not sticky, but for some reason this particular package of ecru is extremely sticky. And I'm really struggling with it. So here we go. I think I've already done this. Go up to the hearts and lay these on the hearts. I'll do one at a time so that I get the same kind of grain. And I need to make sure that gets fastened down, that it sticks. Okay, so then we get to this part, and this is a little bit trickier because it's thicker right here where the knots cross. So you might have a little bit harder time getting that. And this is where you look at it and see what you might need to trim or readjust. So I've got the wood grain on it now. That one looks okay. Let me just redo my point on that one. That may have come out a little bit more than I want it to. So let me just round that off a little bit. And this one kind of spread out a little bit, so let's just try to get it back where it belongs. But considering this is supposed to be hand carved, it's okay for it to be off a little bit. But there we go. I've got a few little places I want to refine. I'm going to take my craft knife, and like here, there's some overlapping in there. I just want to get some of that out so that the knot looks like a knot. And just look around, see if there's any place that you might want to just... Actually, I think this looks pretty good. I'm going to make sure that this rim comes up so that it still looks like a spoon. Sorry about that. And I'm going to bake this. I'm going to bake it for an hour at 275 degrees Fahrenheit, and then I'll be back. Alright, I've got my piece out of the oven, and it's pretty sturdy. I think this size is probably one that would hang on the wall. But before we do anything, we need to antique this. So I'm going to get one of my mixing trays. I have several, but this one is the one that's handy, so I'll use that. And I forgot to get my brown paint. I pulled this out thinking it was brown last night, and the light wasn't very good in here, and it ends up being a dark red, even though I'm going to keep that out. But let me go get my paint. I'll be right back. Okay, I brought two browns over here. I have burnt sienna and burnt umber. And I want to see which one I think will be the best color. I'm going to put it in here. And I don't want to dirty a small brush just to test them, so let me get a Q-tip. And this is a piece of paper right here. I'm just going to see what it looks like. So I kind of like that for like a cherry wood. But let me see what this other color is going to look like. And I might just put it here on the paper. And smear it with the other side. And that would be a really dark, like a dark walnut. You know, I think I might combine the two. Let me do that. Let me put a little bit more of this burnt sienna in here. And put a little bit of the burnt umber in there. And I'll mix them up with the Q-tip also. I've got other things here, but I'm just going to use a Q-tip just because it's handy. It's still pretty dark. Let me bring this up, but I think it'll look better on this ecru color. So I'm going to go ahead and use this. This is a combination of burnt umber and burnt sienna. And you can see I'm just using ordinary craft paint. And I'm going to put some water in here, because I want it to be more like a wash. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to wash it over the whole thing. Let me do the back first. Get inside your little holes. This may not be as dark as I thought it was going to be now that it's watered down. And if you don't want to get paint all over you, you can put on gloves, but I have a hard time working with gloves. Just do the same thing on the top. Just make sure you get down in all the little grooves. Okay, then I'm going to pick it up with a paper towel. And I'm using a dry paper towel. I always start with a dry paper towel to rub off, because I don't know. We'll see, in this case it took off a lot. If I'd wet this, it would have taken everything off. And I'm thinking maybe I need to use the darker paint. Or maybe not so much water. because it all wiped off. And see, I want the grain. I think it's too watery. Let me just try the dark by itself. Because I did add a lot of water. I probably shouldn't have added that much water. I'm going to try to do this whole heart rather than the whole thing. Let me get a clean paper towel. I like to let it sit for just a minute just to dry a little bit and then wipe off. Oh yeah, this looks much better. And you can control how much you wipe off. Of course, I didn't put any texture on the back, but I do want it covered a little bit. Let me go up to the next section. I like antiquing things. I think it really adds a lot, but it also shows all of your mistakes. Because all of your mistakes that you might not see, this paint will creep into those areas. Let me get rid of it. I was covering up that wet spot, wasn't I? Let me let that sit for a minute. And I'm going to take this piece of paper out so I don't make a total mess. Now that's the way I would like my heart to look. I may have to go put a different layer of paint on my heart. I mean, don't forget the back, like I almost did. Okay, let's go up here. Let's do these hearts. And make sure the paint gets down in those little wood grain grooves that you put on there. We'll go ahead and do the rest of this. Just make sure you get all the little pieces on the sides covered, because that ecru is going to shine just like a neon light otherwise. I'm going to put a little bit more down here and let it dry a little bit. While I'm working on the top, and just wipe lightly. Now, a lot of people use, like I said, wet paper towels or a wet wipe, but if you use that on this, it's going to take most of the paint off. And you want to leave some, because that was the whole idea. And try to still wipe in the direction of your wood grain. But now you can see why it was so important to leave a definition between the grooves. Probably should have let that dry before I tried handling it. I got little fingerprints on it. And I'll add a little bit more color to the, whoops. See, I wiped a little bit too much off there. That's one good thing. It's paint. You can add it back in. I may not have a lot of texture there. Even without texture, I think the back looks as good as the front. But just look where you've got maybe some ink, where you might have some paint. You get another Q-tip accumulated, like in some of these little areas. Sometimes the paint kind of accumulates. And you may want the little globs of paint. Just depends on the look you're looking for. Just go put a little bit on these two places where it looks like I didn't get any texture. And there you go. Let me move this. Well, that's not very clean either, but look at that. There is our Welsh Love Spoon. And I think I'm going to hang it up on the wall once it dries. And if you wanted to dry it, you could use your heat gun, but I would not. I just let it sit here. It's acrylic paint, it dries quickly. And like I say, just dab places where it might have a little bit too much paint. But I think it looks pretty good. So I hope you'll try this. It's something, like I said, I came across it. I was actually looking for some carving designs for my carving videos, and I came across this as one of the carving designs, and I went, whoa, I like that. So I decided to do one, but then I thought, well, this looks like something I would like to do for my patrons. So I hope you enjoy it, and I'm going to probably still touch up little places where there's a little excess paint. Not too much. Everything looks pretty good right now. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I will be back soon with another polymer clay video. Have a great day. Bye-bye.